Hello there! Welcome to Steam in the Woods. In this video, we'll travel to 3 different railroads to see 3 different steam engines as they pull excursion trains during the fall season. The first place we'll travel to is the Indiana Northeastern Railroad. The INER is a third-class short-line freight railroad that runs in southern Michigan, northeastern Indiana, and northwestern Ohio, pretty much where the 3 states meet. For the past couple of years, the railroad has played host to the Indiana Rail Experience. Hosted by the Fort Wayne Railroad Historical Society in partnership with the railroad, IRE runs a series of excursion trains during the spring, summer, and fall seasons with the Society's venerable Nickel Plate Road 765. The date we'll begin with is October 7th, 2023. On this day, I was driving up to the INER to see IRE's Fall Color Steam Special. The special ran from Pleasant Lake, Indiana to Hillsdale, Michigan and return. When I was driving up here, I was running a little behind schedule, which meant I missed a departure from Pleasant Lake. Luckily, I was able to catch up and begin the chase at a truck-trailer parking lot in Fremont, Indiana. Nearby, the railroad crossed the intersection of South Wayne Street and East Swagger Drive at grade. Soon, the whistle was heard in the distance, and everyone got their final positions to watch as 765 rolled through. With the slow pace of the train, I was able to leap ahead to the Road 750 railroad crossing southwest of Ray, Indiana. After seeing the train in Montgomery, the next place I got set up at was at the East Michigan Street Railroad crossing in Reading, Michigan. Here, the railroad passes a set of large grain elevators in town, which are served by the railroad. Soon enough, I arrived in Hillsdale, Michigan. Here, I got set up at the Spring Street Railroad crossing, where next to the railroad, this resident was in the Halloween spirit, the Michigan state flag adding on to the ambience. Just before the railroad crossing, there is a switch that makes up part of a Y here in town. The train had to stop and reset this switch so they could head in the right direction into town. As soon as the train crew set the switch, the train then made its way into the small community. Good day now. As soon as the train got into town, the passengers were allowed to disembark and partake in the activities hosted by Hillsdale. As I made my way into town, the first place I stopped at was the Hillsdale Orthodox Presbyterian Church. Here, the church resides in the old New York Central / Lakeshore and Michigan Southern Railroad station. Also located nearby is the old division offices here, which is now the INER's headquarters. There was also this neat old wigwag signal on display nearby as well. The Fort Wayne Railroad Historical Society also had their own booth set up here as well, selling all sorts of mementos and trinkets. Now, let's look at the engine that pulled the train into town today. Nickel Plate Road 765 is a Class S2 284 Berkshire built for the New York, Chicago, and St. Louis Railroad in 1944. 765, as well as its many running mates, pulled many passenger and freight trains across the nickel plate system. Then, in 1963, the Nickel Plate Road donated 765 to the city of Fort Wayne, Indiana, where it sat on display in a park until the early 1970s. By then, the Fort Wayne Railroad Historical Society was formed with the goal of restoring 765 and running the engine out on the main line once again. When the restoration was completed, 765 pulled many excursion trains across the eastern United States, traveling as far east as the Bronx of New York and as far south as Chattanooga and everywhere else in between over the last 5 decades, pretty much making a name for itself and the society it runs for. After getting myself some lunch, it was almost time for the train to leave Hillsdale. I got myself set up in the parking lot of the Hillsdale Orthopedics to wait for the train to leave. Now, remember earlier when I was talking about the Y here in town? Well, in order for the train to face the right direction out of town, it will now use the rest of the Y to get itself in the right direction.
Go ahead. Go ahead, George. We're ready to go to Ray, over. Roger that. Stand by a second. Got a few bills down here checking something out. Copy that. It's all yours. Roger that. Roger that. 765, come in. 765, answer it. Okay, when you're ready, you can start your backup move. Got about a car and a half to the crossing. Easy back, a car and a half, 765. Take 5, clear for 5 cars. Clear for 5 more, 765. down.
While the train was negotiating the why, I made myself scarce. The next place I got set up at was on Bankers Lake Road railroad crossing, southwest of Hillsdale. The next place I ended up at was back at the East 750 Road Railroad crossing just southwest of Ray, Indiana. In the town of Ray, the excursion train came to a stop to do a photo run-by for the passengers on board, which gave everyone at the railroad crossing time to find the best spots. Once the photo run-bys were over, 765 departed Ray, bound for Pleasant Lake, Indiana. Unfortunately, after this spot, our luck of the sun ran out, and the waterworks from the sky began. The last place we saw the train at was where the train started in the morning, at the Pleasant Lake Depot in Pleasant Lake, Indiana. With the train now at a stop, the passengers disembark the train for the last time to head home. While everyone was working on the train, I swung around to the Main Street Railroad crossing. The train was scheduled to repeat the run the next day, but there is only one place on the Indiana Northeastern Railroad to turn the entire train around for tomorrow's run, and that was back in Hillsdale, Michigan. We'll now watch as they attach INER 1602 to the rear end of the train. INER 1602 is a high-hood EMD GP9 built in 1957 for the Great Northern Railway as their 693. Interestingly, this locomotive was built long hood forward, which means the end we are looking at is actually the back.
Oh, here they go.
While they were coupling up the locomotive to the train, this rainbow then appeared over the town. Once everything was ready, 1602 was then given permission to take the train back to Hillsdale for the turnaround. As the train begins its journey back to Hillsdale, this is where our visit will end. If you get the chance to see 765 or ride behind any of the Indiana Rail Experience's trains, don't miss out. You'll have a great time.